online, on your phone. Stay connected with NECN, New England's connection.
It's election night. Millions of Americans watching and waiting. The clock ticking to polls closing.
It's up to you. This is your country.
The power to vote will change the course of this country.
Across America and here in New England, we have our entire team bringing you the races.
I'm going to unite this country, and we're going to move like we haven't in a long time.
The results.
And we are going to keep on winning, winning, winning.
And the reaction. Tonight we have a team of reporters all across New England bringing you the coverage you won't get anywhere else. And it all starts right now.
It is 7 o'clock on election night, and the first group of polls have just closed in 6 states. In fact, we're talking Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vermont, and Virginia. The votes in those states now officially being counted. Take a live look at Vermont. A little bit of snow on the ground there. The only place in New England where all the polls are currently closed, and actually might be one of the first places where we get results.
Feels good to be able to say that about at least one place in New England. And with those polls closing, that means we are hitting the road to 270. That's the magic number tonight that one of the candidates has to get to win. Here's a look at the electoral map. We'll be tracking it throughout the evening. So whoever reaches that magic number, 270 of electoral votes, will be the next president of the United States of America. But of course, that process could take a while. A lot of votes to count here, Tim.
Yeah, a lot of pressure to make sure it goes out smoothly. If you have a printout of a map at home, you could color along with us maybe if you'd like to. We are covering it all, not just the presidential race, but all the other races going on. Take a live look at one of the polling stations in Massachusetts. There, the polls are still open. Listen, across the Commonwealth, they close at 8 o'clock tonight, so you still got about 58 minutes or so if you haven't already cast your ballot.
And in New Hampshire, polls are closed in some cities and towns, but the statewide cutoff is also at 8 o'clock. So, a little bit different there.
We got crews all over New England. In addition to all the reporters that are set up all over our area, we got two of the best with us tonight to bring you the analysis you won't get anywhere else. Brian Shackman, he's on the big board. You're going to be busy tonight with that touchscreen, Brian.
I got to tell you, this is starting to get a little exciting. In terms of seeing how things are closing and what's going to happen. We're going to take a look at the states that are closing right now and what the potential electoral impact is if it goes one way or the other.
Very interesting. And we're going to bring back our Stu O'Connell in just a little bit. But first, we're going to get to Vermont. And that is another state that, they have a lieutenant race, actually, because they do things a little differently there.
Yeah, lieutenant governor race there, the governor running for re-election there, and a lot of interesting things happening there because the polls have just closed in that state. So we might actually have their 3 electoral votes going very quickly there. Just one of 6 states where people can no longer vote tonight. Officially done in Vermont. All done.
Crossing them off the list. So let's bring in our Jack Thurston. He is covering it all for us in Vermont. And Jack, you always give us all the information from Vermont. What's going on tonight?
Well, Jackie, just moments ago, we saw the town clerk here in Williston lock the door here at the Armory, which is the polling place. No more voting here. It's all over but the counting. Now, historically, Vermont has been one of the fastest states to return its presidential results. We knew shortly after the top of the hour in 2016, 2012, 2008, exactly who this state's electoral votes have gone to. That call has not yet been made, but we're expecting it fairly soon, similar to our congressional race. A lot of the state races, though, some of those are a lot tighter. That'll take some time. We heard from the Secretary of State, Jim Kondos, why being patient all across the country, not just here in Vermont, all across the country, is going to be so important this year. Here he is.
Generally, across this country, we must be ready for the reality that accurately counting the election with integrity this year may take longer than in times past. It is vitally important to take our time to get things right. Accuracy leads to better integrity. With something as important as our elections, the focus remains on doing things accurately and not doing them quickly.
Accuracy is paramount. Now, one thing that's going to help town clerks here in Williston and across the state is that starting 30 days ago, they could actually open up the envelopes and feed them into the tabulators. So they've been counting the ballots that came in early all along. So really today, there are two things happening. Some towns here still count them by hand. So those towns are starting just now to start counting by hand. But then in other towns like here in Wilson, where they use tabulators, they're going to be adding up the votes that came in today on top of the ones that they've already been voting for, counting for weeks from the early voters. Tim and Jackie.
Okay.
Jack Thurston in Vermont, where they have 3 electoral votes, and we expect to hear fairly soon on what direction they'll go. We already have one state that's been called, Indiana, and the 11 electoral votes from that state. NBC projecting that President Donald Trump will win the state of Indiana. Let's get to that big board, and Brian Shackman, where you can mark that one red, Brian.
Yep, and we pretty much assume that's the case anyway. 6 states closed. Now polls, 60 electoral votes at stake. Let's just sort of break down in terms of which ones are at stake. Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vermont, and Virginia, as we talked about. Those 11 from Indiana went red. It's a relatively safe assumption that Kentucky and South Carolina will go red as well. But again, there's been no official call on either of those races. Vermont, again, the conventional wisdom is that will go blue. Virginia has been in different pockets in different cycles. Right now, there aren't many analysts that think it'll go anywhere other than blue. So Georgia is the one I want to focus on. It's 16 electoral votes. You know, we played around a lot with the map in the last hour about all these different scenarios. So let's just talk for a second about if Georgia did go blue, where would that leave Biden? It would leave Biden at 248, and that would mean it doesn't open a ton of possibilities. I mean, if you go PA, if Pennsylvania goes blue, he is still short of 270, and you think of Pennsylvania as a huge prize. So what is the importance of Georgia if it does go to Biden? Well, it's not electoral. It does make it easier, but still, even if you go blue for Georgia and then Michigan and Wisconsin come through, right, he gets it. So that's sort of the ceiling with that in terms of possibilities. But it would mean that Biden won a pretty strong red state. And that's really what's important, because everyone's looking at indicators on how the night's going to go. And obviously we'll learn Florida in a way that maybe earlier than a place like Pennsylvania. But guys, Georgia is really important more for the symbolism and almost more than the electoral impact. And that's why we're watching that state as closely as we are.
Okay, Brian Shackman, thanks so much for that. And now we want to go to our political reporter, Allison King. She is following this presidential election very closely, as she has been for years now, Allison.
Well, that's right. And first of all, Brian Shackman's having way too much fun at that map. But I will say he's doing a great job of pointing out these states that are so important tonight to keep an eye on. And of course, I'm starting out by just watching these Southeast states that are counting the early votes early, like Florida, North Carolina, and Georgia. You know, if Biden were to pull off a win in a state like Florida before 11 o'clock tonight, I mean, that would be sort of the end of the game in some respects. Not that there wouldn't still be a path for Donald Trump, but it would be an extremely tight one for him to meet. Another state that I just find so interesting is Texas. And while conventional wisdom says it's probably not going to go for Joe Biden, it would be just such a remarkable story, historical story, if that very bright red state were to go for Joe Biden. So those are just 2 of the states I'm keeping an eye on tonight: Florida, Texas, and of course Pennsylvania. But I have a feeling that's going to be a really late one.
You know, New Hampshire typically has been a battleground state, but apparently not so much this year. It does seem like it is leaning one particular direction. What's the change this year, Allison?
Yeah, so interesting, Tim. You know, New Hampshire was watched nationally so closely in 2000 when Al Gore, the famous Al Gore story, that if he'd only campaigned more in New Hampshire and gotten those 4 votes, we would never know the term hanging chads. That didn't happen. Since then, New Hampshire has rarely been ignored. However, let's go back 4 years ago. Hillary Clinton only won by 2,700 votes. So certainly extreme swing state 4 years ago. This year, the polls consistently showing a 10-point lead for Joe Biden in the past month or so. And I'll tell you, it's a very interesting dynamic, because the Republicans up there, the Trump supporters, I should say, are very confident in New Hampshire, despite that 10-point lead that Joe Biden has. The rallies, I will say, that they have had up there, I've been to 2 of them for Donald Trump, 2 for Vice President Pence. They have incredible energy and incredible enthusiasm. We don't know if that's just the base that he's always had or if that's an expanded Trump base, but we're certainly going to know probably by the end of the evening in New Hampshire.
So much, Allison King out there in our newsroom for us, tracking it all. Thank you. And cities and towns in Massachusetts are very busy counting the ballots, that already came in. And when polls close at 8 o'clock, they'll continue counting there too. It was a busy day at the polls, even though nearly 2.5 million people did vote early, either in person or by mail. Now, if you haven't voted yet, you don't have that much time. You got about 50 minutes left because polls close statewide at 8 o'clock. Let's get out to our Abby Nesgoda. She's been at a polling location in Stoneham all day. And Abby, slow trickle lines, what are you seeing there?
Well, it's down to the wire here in Stoneham, Jackie. I can tell you that there were lines earlier this morning. There's really no big last-minute rush where we are at Town Hall here in Stoneham. The last few voters are getting in before the doors close in less than an hour. With all of the early and mail-in voting, it's really hard to gauge. But Stoneham, one of many communities, expecting record turnout tonight. From a long line this morning to a trickle of voters this evening. At Stoneham Town Hall, the clock is ticking to get your ballot in. Why'd you wait till the last minute?
Well, I didn't know if you still could, and we just looked it up, so started to head over.
Patrick Witherell dressing up for the occasion. It's his first time voting in an election.
Feels pretty good. Feels like we have a choice in the country. It feels big responsibility, I guess.
Debbie Moeller came as soon as she got off work.
I don't have time to get up in the morning. I don't leave myself enough time to get up and do this before I go in.
Add their ballots to the 10,000 that were already cast in Stoneham between mail-in and early voting.
Tired. Yeah? Is that a good answer?
That's how Town Clerk Maria Sagarino is feeling after processing all of them. But she's grateful so far there's been few issues.
Other than a few people strolling in with, Make America Great Again or Trump on their mask, it's been pretty pleasant.
The sanitizer is out and the plexiglass is up, even though it makes it a little tougher for volunteers.
I find myself standing up when most people come, and I put my ear on the other side and try to keep my face on this side.
And it didn't take us long to find voters on both sides.
I just feel like Joe Biden is going to be a fresh start.
I'm voting for Donald Trump because I want to live in a free society. I want low taxes, and I want to just be free.
No matter who wins, we can tell you this. The town clerk here in Stoneham expects to have results pretty quickly tonight because, guys, unlike 2016, this town has been able to process all of the ballots, all 10,000 ballots that came in early. I've in Stoneham, I'm Abby Nesgoda.
Okay, thanks so much, Abby. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, people in the tiny town of Dixville Notch were among the first to cast their votes. They did so just after midnight. And now in that tiny town, just about 20 miles south of Canada, Joe Biden did receive all 5 of that town's votes, so very tiny. And people in much of New Hampshire still have until about 8 o'clock to vote, even if they didn't get started at midnight.
So about 45 minutes to go. Our Michael Rosenfield is there. Is there a mad rush at the end there, Michael, or has this been kind of the same all day with the slow trickle because of the early voting?
We've seen really a steady flow pretty much all day today here in New Hampshire. Some polling locations have actually closed down as of 7 o'clock this evening. At the 7 o'clock hour, they are done in many spots. Others, though, are open until 8. It just really depends on where you live. Things do vary by city and town here in New Hampshire. So tonight, the state Republicans will be gathering right here at the Doubletree Hotel in downtown Manchester. More of a traditional election night party rather than the virtual events many are having. The Republicans are hoping Trump can flip the script from 2016 when he narrowly lost to Hillary Clinton here in the Granite State. So this afternoon, we spent some time in Salem, which traditionally leans Republican. We found some voters who would like a change in the White House. Others, though, are standing by the president. 4 electoral votes are on the line.
Economy is big and veterans are big. Okay, and so far, Mr. Trump has done a great job for the veterans, which is really important.
I like Joe Biden because he stands for the environment. He's for Black Lives Matter. We want to get this coronavirus under control. And just the decency as a human being means all the world to me.
So here in New Hampshire, there's also a governor's race tonight. There's a Senate seat up for grabs and 2 congressional races as well. So a lot to keep our eyes on this evening. It'll be a very busy night here in New Hampshire. We're live in Manchester. Michael Rosenfield, NBC 10 Boston.
Okay, thanks so much, Michael.
Yeah, a lot more ahead here on NECN. Only 7:15. Some states, the polls have closed. Others, voting is still going on. That means New England and across the country. We've got team coverage all over the place, including that all-important touchscreen. We map it out for you. Brian Scheckman's all over. We got a lot of coverage still coming up. Stay with us here on NECN.
Get more than just the headlines. Join Jackie and Tim as they take a deep dive into the biggest news of the day.
Here on the 10, we make it our mission to dig a little deeper.
10 straight minutes on the topics you want to know more about.
We want to take a second look at what ranked choice voting is.
Answering all your questions, even the ones you didn't know you had.
Man's best friend, maybe man's best tool in the fight against COVID-19.
Get more out of your news with the 10. Weeknights at 10, only on NECN, New England's Connection.
All right, I brought in Ensure Max Protein to give you the protein you need with less of the sugar you don't. I'll take that.
30 grams of protein and 1 gram of sugar. Ensure Max Protein with nutrients to support immune health.
Laser X, the #1 home laser tag game on the planet. And now, get ready for the revolution. Join Team Red, Blue, or whatever color you choose. Just dial up any color and you're ready to blast anyone. Team up with your own color or go rogue and blast them all. Revolution has an all-new quick slide reload plus a 300-foot range. You can get the Revolution double set for $49.99 and shipping is free. Batteries not included. Extra blasters sold separately. Must be 18 years or older to order. Laser X.
Because of this, we built the most powerful Ford Explorer ever. Because of this, we built Ford Expedition with best-in-class towing. Because of this, we built Escape with Ford Copilot 360. And because Ford SUVs are built for this, you made Ford America's best-selling brand. Lease Explorer, a top safety pick plus for $229 a month, or get 0 for 60 plus up to $4,500 total cash on select SUVs.
Corian countertops from Bill Shays. Yep, that Bill Shays. Corian's so clean it's used in hospitals and labs. And unlike other countertops that have crevices where germs hide, Corian's non-porous, giving them no place to hide, and comes in a ton of colors that'll give your kitchen a brand new look. Call Bill Shays. Install the cleanest countertops you can put your hands on. Call the company so serious about countertops, they put it in their name. Bill Shays Countertops. Because when you say Shays, you make your new counter tops.
Nobody builds a roof like Olin. Serving communities of Eastern Massachusetts for over 40 years, Olin is your local roofing expert with the best warranties in the business. Nobody builds a roof like Olin. Call today at 1-877-BUY-OLIN.
The procrastinators are out this evening, 7 feet. Well, maybe they're not out. Look how quiet it is there. Taking a live look in Salem, Massachusetts, just a handful of people there. It's actually been a steady flow of very few people with so many people voting early, but good to see the people kind of burning the midnight oil when it comes to voting in Massachusetts. The polls close here in just about 45 minutes from now, so if you haven't voted already, still got a little bit of time. You know, it's interesting, too, because we block off different groups on how it may impact the election. A key voting block this election cycle is the black vote.
Yeah, and the candidates have both pushed to win votes, but also address the issue of racial injustice, a major issue all year long. Our Sue O'Connell is here now with more on this. And Sue, for a lot of people, this is a major issue, maybe the issue that they're voting on.
Yes, and it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that the Democrats cannot win the presidency without the black vote, without the energetic, passionate, getting to the polls black vote. And joining me to talk about how it's not a monolith is Tanisha Sullivan. Tanisha is the president of the Boston NAACP. Tanisha, welcome to election night. Yay, we made it.
Thank you, Sue. I am so excited about what is to come. So great to be here.
I want to talk about the black vote, because we always talk about the women's vote, the gay vote. Joe Biden could not have made it through the primary unless he got the black vote, which he was counting on in South Carolina. But it's not a monolith. There are all sorts of different types of people who want to vote in different ways. What are some of the issues that are driving folks to the polls within the black and African American communities?
I think the issues are, the same as in many respects as what we're seeing in other demographic groups across the country. Certainly the economy is of concern within the Black community, and the opportunity to participate fully in the prosperity of this country. But also, of course, we know that the COVID-19 public health pandemic has really wreaked havoc through our community, leading to significantly high rates of mortality. And then, of course, the ongoing racial reckoning in this country is of deep concern to Black Americans. I think, when it comes to the racial justice issue, I think it's really important for folks to understand that this is an issue. Racial equality is an issue that we've been fighting for generations. And so this is not new for us. But I think the hope in this moment is that, as we look to 21, hopefully we will have the type of change in this country that will lead us to the point where we are moving closer to perfecting our union, moving closer to really fulfilling the promises of freedom, justice, and equality that this country promises to all. So we are hopeful tonight. We are voting for those things that really reflect our dreams, our hope for this country.
One of the challenges Joe Biden has had in the campaign is reaching young African-American men. I often thought that was an interesting category because I think reaching young men to vote is a difficult category overall. Were there challenges there that were sort of baked into the way that Joe Biden was campaigning, or were there just broader themes that young men were more interested in exploring before they settled on Joe Biden, if they settled on Joe Biden?
This is something that has emerged as a topic of conversation and concern for some folks within the last few weeks. I would say that this is an issue that has been with us for quite some time. How does either party or any party or any candidate really engage fully the electorate? And I think what we're seeing specifically among Black men is not disengagement, as some would suggest, but actually I believe it suggests quite the opposite, that Black men, young Black men, are engaged, that they are paying attention, and that they want more, that they expect more of any candidate who wants their vote, and that their vote should not be taken for granted. And so I'm hopeful that as we move forward, that there will be greater intentionality placed on the issues and concerns that are coming from, again, what I believe is a very engaged Black male constituency.
All right, Tanisha Sullivan, thank you so much for joining us. Happy election night. I'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy is one way to put it, Sue and Tanisha. Thank you guys very much. And we are getting some results in from New England. NBC now projecting that Joe Biden is the projected winner of Vermont and the 3 electoral votes there. Indiana has already been gone to Trump, the projected winner there. So 11-3. It's early. We got some numbers in.
Yep, but we already have a score so far. So the results start coming in even more, though, in this next, 45 minutes to next hour. We're going to be taking a live look at the NECN studio right now. That is where Brian Chapman will be playing with that touch screen all night, trying to figure out what is the path to victory. Very wide right now, still a lot to go. We'll be here all night as we continue cover Decision 2020, so stay with us all night.
Today's ways of working may work differently tomorrow, but you can work out anything with Comcast Business. Get fast, reliable, and secure internet on the nation's largest gig speed network. Flexible tools like Wi-Fi you control, voice solutions that connect you from anywhere, and expert advice. Here, or even here. Be fast, be flexible, bounce forward with Comcast Business. Get started with a powerful internet solution for just $69.99 a month. Plus, for a limited time, ask how to get a $500 prepaid card when you upgrade. Switch today.
Laser X. the #1 home laser tag game on the planet. And now, get ready for the revolution. Join Team Red, Blue, or whatever color you choose. Just dial up any color, and you're ready to blast anyone. Team up with your own color, or go rogue and blast them all. Revolution has an all-new quick slide reload plus a 300-foot range. You can get the Revolution double set for $49.99, and shipping is free. Batteries not included. Extra blasters sold separately. Must be 18 years or older to order. Laser X.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Who am I? Under eye bags and wrinkles are so frustrating. I came across Plexiderm and I was so excited. We have a model. All he's doing is taking a small amount. It's so powerful, that's all it takes. Tightens the skin and smooths it out. Gently rub it underneath your eyes, on your fine lines and wrinkles, and it visibly disappears in as little as 10 minutes.
You know, I felt something happening, but I had no idea. Like, I have so many dark circles, I have the puffiness, I have the lines. Like, it's amazing. I love it.
Holy words I can't say on camera. This is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I could feel it just lifting my skin. It was amazing. It feels good, feels great, looks even better.
This Thanksgiving is the best time to get Plexiderm for only $14.95 and see it work for yourself after your first application. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
Working at the VA is so meaningful to me because you get to see how helping a veteran affects not only their lives, but the lives of their families.
Time and time again, I'll have a veteran come up and say, hey, I met you here last year at this event.
And tell me that the VA has saved their lives, and it was all because they enrolled in the VA healthcare system.
Eligible veterans can get everything that they need from the VA. Getting them introduced to the programs and services that are available is a very rewarding experience.
Connect with the benefits you've earned and deserve. Call 844-VA-CARES.
Welcome back to our coverage of Decision 2020. Polls in Rhode Island will close in just 34 minutes and no seconds now. 33:58 actually now, Tim.
Counting down. There are a couple of states like North Carolina, Ohio that close in about 4 minutes from now, 8 o'clock. The vast majority of the remaining New England states will close. So that's when we'll start to see a couple more of those numbers trickle in. You know, casting a ballot still going on in a lot of states. It's actually a modern right for women in America, but getting here was a long fight.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, especially for a millennial like me, reaping all the benefits of their hard work. But now polls are suggesting that this presidential election could result in the biggest gender gap in the country that we've seen since women have won the right to vote 100 years ago. So what's really causing this shift? We're joined by Amanda Hunter, and Research and Communications Director she is for the director of the Barbara Lee Family Foundation. Amanda, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
We want to start and ask you, why do you think more female voters are turning out to vote this year? Is it, you know, Kamala Harris? Is it just the issues?
We've really seen a big shift since the Women's March in 2017 when it comes to women's political engagement. And our research shows that women report that they're more politically engaged than ever. And the only barriers that they report for not being more active are having to take care of family.
So interestingly enough here, we have seen the president try to woo suburban women in these last couple of weeks before the election. What was the shift that happened between 2016 and 2020? It seems like a lot of those voters who went for Trump back then are kind of leaning towards Biden now.
Well, I don't think it's just about Trump and Biden. I think it's bigger than that. The moment that we're in right now with the COVID-19 crisis has disproportionately affected women in so many ways, with work, with homeschooling, with actual health care and getting the illness. And so women don't have a choice but be politically engaged at this moment because it's literally life or death for so many families right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. And how has the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the election of Amy Coney Barrett impacted this election? Do you think that women are concerned about women's rights right now?
Well, women's rights are always kind of at the forefront when you think about issues like paid family leave and childcare and issues that really affect families but are traditionally called women's rights. Certainly, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a giant of a figure and a hero to so many women. So it certainly galvanized a lot of women on both sides of the aisle when she passed away.
She was obviously an icon for millions of Americans and a whole lot of women. Do you think in the last kind of couple weeks, people were inspired by that, knowing that she didn't want her seat to be filled before this election, and it was, maybe got people angry enough if they weren't voting, or were those voters anyway?
Well, what we've seen since the Women's March in 2017 has been really a constant drumbeat of political engagement. When you look at not only the Women's March, but all of the racial justice demonstrations that took place across the country, the demonstrations that took place at airports during the Muslim ban early on, there have been countless moments where people have been activated. And what we're really looking at is if this moment is going to inspire even more women to run for office in 2021 and 2022, because we know that a lot of women are activated into politics when an issue like that affects their family or their community.
Okay, Amanda Hunter, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be talking to you throughout the night, and I appreciate it.
We should see some new information coming in fairly soon as well. In just about 15 seconds from now, another round of polls closing at 7:30. And take a look at the states, because they're big ones, too. Throw West Virginia out. That typically goes Republican. But North Carolina and Ohio, both considered battleground states this year, and the polls closed there right now. They just closed a second ago. So we should expect to see some early results from those states, which could give us a sense of what might happen all across the country. We'll have to wait and see, though. Ohio and North Carolina, two big ones to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. We already know Indiana and Vermont, so let's get right over to Brian Shackman. He's plotting that all out on the touch screen. What were you calling it yesterday, Tim?
It's a telestrator when he draws like the plays on it, but the touch screen when he's just touching the individual states. Microphones usually are an important part of telestration. Part of it's arrows, part of it's audio.
Jackie, you should talk to your husband and ask your husband who the czar of the telestrator is, Jackie, and he will tell you, because it's a basketball reference. So
yes.
Your husband will know.
He's watching, so he, I'm sure, will be DMing you about that right now.
Text Jackie right now, Joe.
Joe DMs me about bacon only, never basketball. Listen, I want to talk about those two states that Tim talked about, which would be North Carolina and Ohio. Now, everyone talks about how important Ohio is. Well, what if it does? Again, this is a battleground map, okay? This is, right now, if you assume all the states that are heavily blue, that would give Biden 212. All the ones that are heavily red, it would give Trump 125. But a lot of these so-called battleground states are leaning red. So don't pay attention to that top line number. But if Ohio did go blue, where would that leave Joe Biden? It would give him 230. And a lot of people are talking about Wisconsin and Michigan flipping to blue. They both went red in 2016. That would still not be enough for Joe Biden to become the next president of the United States. He would be at 256. So he would need something like Arizona. That would potentially put him over the top. And so it's not enough. But when you clear it out, if you took Ohio and North Carolina, would that be enough? It would not. It'd get to 245. So you would still need something like Wisconsin and Michigan to get to 271. So in terms of Ohio's importance, I think because a lot of people are assuming that it's going to go Trump, that it still doesn't have as many avenues towards success that you might think. Now, what if you flipped Ohio and Pennsylvania, which would be huge, huge for the Democratic Party? Again, that gets you to 250. You are not there. So everyone's like, wow, if Biden won Ohio and Pennsylvania, it's just a smooth shot to the White House. It's not necessarily the case, because that's why we keep coming back to Wisconsin and Michigan. That would get him to 276. Now, just to play around for a second when it comes to that, what if Pennsylvania and Ohio went blue and Arizona went blue? It's still not enough. So the last one I want to point to in terms of options would be North Carolina. Again, that's why these early states are so important, because they'll give you an indication of what could be to come, just like we talked about Georgia. If North Carolina goes blue and Ohio goes blue, he's at 245. And then Wisconsin and Michigan would put him over the top at 271. So when we talk about Ohio, it is hugely important in the Electoral College. But in some ways, a lot of the analysts we've talked to, they've kind of written it off to some degree. It is a battleground state. They've written it off to a degree for Biden. So if he won it, it would just be a bonus. But he still would have a fair amount of work to do.
Okay, well, you were doing a great job out there, Brian. Thank you so much. And we are still hearing some reports of issues with mail-in ballots here in Massachusetts, which is concerning, of course.
And our Ryan Cass spoke with a woman in Dorchester who had an issue. He shares her story now.
Things went much more smoothly than feared. That was the headline from voting rights organizations who've been tracking any issues that pop up at the polls all across the state. But even with that good news, there have been a variety of issues reported. One of the most closely watched items, any confusion over mail-in balloting, which surged this year amid the pandemic. A Dorchester voter showed up at her polling place this morning with her parents and was told they needed to exchange their unused mail-in ballots in order to vote. That's not the case. The only way you can't vote in person is if your mail-in ballot had already been received and accepted by your local election office. Things did eventually get straightened out, but she wonders how many other voters got the mixed message.
My concern really was the folks who showed up maybe before us that went home, was turned away, went home and may not have returned. That's just one lost vote. And as you know, that's just one lost vote too many, because every vote counts in this election this year for sure.
We're told that same confusion did play out in other communities like Lawrence, Springfield, and New Bedford. On a national level, we're also hearing about robocalls that went out telling people to, quote, stay home and stay safe. We talked to law enforcement and election officials here around Massachusetts, and they did say there were some people who did get those calls, but overall, once again, this was reported to be a very smooth and uneventful day at the polls. In Dorchester, I'm Ryan Kath.
2.3 million people in Massachusetts alone voted early. More people showed up to the polls today. Regardless of how this turns out, which side you're on, impressive. When you voice your choice, have a voice in this election. It seems like a lot of people did this year.
Yeah, excellent for democracy.
Yeah, your Decision 2020 team coverage continues ahead right here on NECN. A live look from Salem, Massachusetts. Polls close there in about 25 minutes. They might be wrapping up soon.
Yeah.
They won't close early. They'll close at 8 o'clock tonight, but it's been a slow, steady stream of people, certainly not packed.
Maybe because of all those early voters, and you know we have it all covered for you. We're going to take a live look at the NECN newsroom. There are people inside there working really hard, socially distant, of course. One of them, Brian Shackman, we'll have more with him when we come back, so stay tuned as we count on the road to 270.
Laser X, the #1 home laser tag game on the planet. And now, get ready for the revolution. Join Team Red, Blue, or whatever color you choose. Just dial up any color, and you're ready to blast anyone. Team up with your own color, or go rogue and blast them all. Revolution has an all-new quick slide reload plus a 300-foot range. You can get the Revolution double set for $49.99, and shipping is free. Batteries not included. Extra blasters sold separately. Must be 18 years or older to order. Laser X.
At State Street Discount, we know how much you care about your kitchen. We spend most of our time here too. That's why we think finding the right appliances is the key to creating a perfect kitchen. At State Street, our team has decades of combined experience and can answer any question you may have about our great selection, from commercial quality to budget conscious. Let us help you find the right products for the place you spend so much of your time with friends and family.
State Street Discount, all you want.
If your credit card debt is out of control, if you're in over your head in monthly payments, there's a secret the credit card companies don't want you to know. If you have more than $10,000 in credit card debt, you have the right to let us settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. That's bad news for the credit card companies, but it's great news for you. We're Credit Associates, and we're offering you free information on how to completely resolve your credit card debt with a monthly payment you can afford. To see how much you could save, call now. 1-800-905-1069. Don't declare bankruptcy. Don't consolidate. Give us 10 minutes and we could save you thousands. After all, we depend on your success and offer a guarantee so there's no risk to call. Credit Associates. Live better, debt-free. Find out how easy it is by calling now. For the secret the credit card companies don't want you to know, call Credit Associates now and see how much money you could save for free. Call 1-800-905-1069.
This snowplow season, your money's gonna work even harder, because you'll get up to $6,000 total savings on the 2020 Ford Super Duty. With best-in-class available maximum snowplow weight. And you can fork over less taxes too, with up to $1,040,000 in deductions on qualifying new equipment. Hey, you don't get snow days, and neither does Super Duty. During snowplow season, get up to $6,000 total savings on your plow-equipped Super Duty.
Back now at our Decision 2020 coverage on this election night, 7:38. A lot of polls have closed across the country. You know, if you've been through Boston the last couple of days, you probably noticed that a lot of businesses preparing for any potential protests following the election.
Yeah, it's both eerie and kind of sad in a state of a democracy that we feel we may have to do this, but many of them are boarded up, and our Eli Rosenberg is in Boston. And Eli, what are you seeing out there? A lot of boards up, it looks like.
Well, Jackie and Tim, important to know right off the bat, the mayor and city and state officials saying there are no credible threats against Boston right now. Still, as you said, very eerie to see business after business down here boarded up. Definitely life goes on, but against this backdrop right here, and not too far from where we're standing, hundreds of state police mobilizing and getting ready. A sea of blue in Boston tonight. More than 100 state police SUVs lined up and ready for whatever election night may bring.
There's so many scenes you see around the city that you would have never imagined that this was America.
And in downtown Boston, preparing for a storm of uncertainty.
Saying that we have to, resort to things like this, that's a scary thought.
These construction crews can barely keep up with the work. Some of the nicest stores in Boston suddenly dressed in boards.
We're actually everywhere right now. We got guys over there, guys down here. It's crazy.
As those last ballots are collected, and a city waits to see what happens.
The actual divide between the whole country is just, it's astonishing. I would have never thought it would have been like this.
And it may look quiet here behind me, but these crews that are boarding up businesses staying busy tonight. The owner of one company gave me a long list of addresses he had to go to tonight. Another texted me just a few minutes ago saying he's headed to a business not too far from where we're standing. So definitely a lot of preparations underway as everyone, Tim, hopes for a quiet night.
Eli, seems quiet out there at the moment. We know Governor Charlie Baker says he's ready to mobilize the National Guard if needed. You mentioned several times that no credible threats, nothing going on at the moment. Have you even seen National Guard out there?
No, and you're right. Governor Baker activating 1,000 National Guard members. As we saw earlier this summer, it does not take long for them to make their presence known down here, but we have not seen them. What we have seen, police cruising this area in the Back Bay, Newberry, Boylston, Berkeley, Dartmouth, etc. We've also seen bicycle cops also patrolling the area, but really quiet down here. But no, we have not seen the National Guard. Tim.
Our Eli Rosenberg, keep an eye on things in downtown Boston. It's like Back Bay at the moment. All right, the clock is ticking. Check it out, 19 minutes and change before the polls officially close in the state of Maine. Really just a handful of minutes left. So if you haven't voted yet, rush on over there. Don't speed, but rush on over to the polls. You got about 18 minutes and change. People, though, all day long, though, they've been lining up throughout different polling locations in the state of Maine this year. They're using the ranked choice voting system for the very first time. We'll have to see if this has any impact on the results later this evening on a number of races, really. Of course, people are there voting for president like all over the U.S. But in the state of Maine, all eyes across the country keeping an eye on the Senate race there. It proves to be not only an important one, a potentially close one, too. We're talking Susan Collins, the incumbent Republican, against Sarah Gideon, the Democrat. Susan Collins trying to hold on to that Senate seat she's held for quite some time. But polls over the last week show that race is neck and neck, and the outcome really could have a big impact on the balance of power in the Senate. One of the first ones that we'll be looking at.
And one of the ones we'll be following so closely because we may not know the answer tonight, but let's talk about it because Maine is one of the most closely watched races really for a lot of people. Dustin Blokowski has been watching it closer than really anyone else. He's been covering this all, season long, and he's out there at the Susan Collins campaign, and you're in Bangor. What's the feeling from the campaign right now, Dustin?
Well, I'd say that they're excited. They spent the day going through the Worcester County in the northern part of Maine. They've got this set up back here. It's campaign buses, it's heaters, it's an outside party on a cold fall evening here in Bangor. But the question is, has Senator Collins changed? That's what Mainers are asking themselves as they went to the polls either earlier in the month or today. Has D.C. changed her, especially in the era of Donald Trump?
I actually really like both candidates. I think they genuinely do have the best interest of Maine at heart.
7 years after a political scientist called Susan Collins close to bulletproof in this newspaper article.
The entire country is watching Maine right now.
The four-term senator is in the re-election fight of her life. No understatement.
It's a tough race for her this year.
Instead of a smooth cruise to victory, capturing well over 68% of the vote like she did in 2014, most polls this year showed Collins a hair behind her Democratic challenger, Sarah Gideon. Gideon, Maine's House Speaker who outraised Collins by millions, quite literally capitalized on Collins's choices concerning two key people, the president,
thank you, Susan,
and Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
I will vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh.
Collins' lack of opposition to Trump on issues like impeachment and taxes, her decision to support Kavanaugh's confirmation, lost her Democrats. And while she did counter the White House on health care and confirming Amy Coney Barrett, these national issues are where Democrats who may have thrown her a vote in the past say, bye-bye, Susan. There are even some conservatives in Maine turned off by Collins not being all in on Trump. She hasn't appeared with him when he's been here. She hasn't endorsed him either. And she tries to focus the campaign narrative on what she's done for Maine and D.C. the past 24 years.
It's really interesting to see a longtime incumbent senator trying to figure out a way to localize the message. She does not want this election to be about Donald Trump.
We'll get a better answer to that question of whether Collins was able to focus this race on her and her record soon. The question then is, how soon? If this goes to a ranked choice runoff, we could be waiting a week or more for final results, Tim and Jackie.
And Wachowski out there in Bangor, thanks so much. We'll be talking to him a lot tonight. Another guy we're going to be talking to a lot is Perry Russom. He is also in Portland, Maine, covering the Gideon campaign. And Sarah Gideon got into this race after, of course, Collins spoke and voted for Kavanaugh. And she's got to be feeling pretty good because it's a competitive race for the first time in a long time for Collins.
Yeah, but talk about a get out the vote campaign. So the polls close at 8 o'clock tonight. At 7:04, Gideon released a video on Twitter asking people to go and vote. So they're looking for every vote in what's expected to be a very close race.
Hey, it is so great to see you all today.
Sarah Gideon making final stops in Portland after months of campaigning.
I think we see extraordinary turnout. I think we see people very motivated for change.
It could be a major upset by Maine's Democratic House Speaker, taking down Susan Collins, who is looking for her 5th term as senator.
As much as I like Susan Collins, she and the Republicans have to be taught a lesson that just kissing the butt of the guy in charge doesn't work anymore.
How does it feel to have this race over with for you?
Thank God.
The race has become the most expensive in Maine's history.
It was a lot of negativity on both sides.
It's all a lie. It's all a lie. Also considered the most negative. TV commercials running constantly.
It's getting to the point I haven't even watched TV. I've even been reading. I don't even watch the news anymore until it's just saturation right now.
This saturation could lead to success for Gideon and a win that could change the balance of power in the Senate.
We do need a Senate that wants to do the work of the American people. And I want to be a senator from Maine who's able to make sure that we are taking care of the issues that matter most to Mainers.
Again, the polls close at 8 o'clock tonight. We are 14 minutes away from that. The big question is, what will the return look like? How long will that take? More than 400,000 people voted by absentee, so that could be a major part of this vote, guys.
Perry, ranked choice voting could actually be a factor in all this. I thought it was interesting. At least one of the independent candidates said, pick me first, but here's who you should pick for second place, essentially saying, I know I'm not going to probably win, but I'd like your vote, and here's who I would like my vote to go to once I get booted out and ranked choice voting moves along that way.
Right, yeah, the candidate you're talking about is Lisa Savage. She's the person that said, if you vote for me first, make sure you put Sarah Gideon second. If that happens, Tim, we're talking about a week and a half before we could possibly see results. They're going to have to take all the ballots, send them to Augusta, and then retabulate them. So that is a huge question on whether or not that will happen in Maine.
Okay, well, Perry Russom up there in Portland must be noted. It's very empty there right now, as you can see. We are in the midst of a pandemic, so things are going to be a little different as we watch people either announce that they're winning or losing. And we're going to be talking a lot tonight about how this is a different night.
Yeah, normally you have big crowds coming together in some sort of political headquarters to either cheer or in some cases be real sad about the night. But it's different in 2020, like everything is in 2020. Listen, one thing that hasn't changed, the time that the polls are closing. It's 8 o'clock in Connecticut, not currently 8 o'clock, but the polls close at 8 o'clock, which is, as you see, 12 minutes and a couple seconds away. So, again, if you haven't gotten out and voted yet in the state of Connecticut and a couple other states to close at 8 o'clock, you got a couple seconds left. You just got to be in line before 8 o'clock tonight. We got a lot more ahead, especially after the 8 o'clock hour, Jackie, because that's where it starts to get interesting as more and more states close their polls.
Right, to see who has 4 years left in that White House after this. We'll be finding out maybe tonight, maybe in the next few days, but one thing's for sure, you can follow it all here on NECN. Stay with us.
So let's talk about season 3.
We built our first modular beach house.
Nice job building a house today.
Instant house.
Designed a West Coast-inspired dream home.
The master.
Renovated a perfect starter home in record time.
Really, this is kind of a flip.
We were able to open this whole room up and completed our biggest build since last season with some of the coolest features we've ever done.
I've never done a golf simulator before.
Heart of Oak, Saturday at 4 on NECN.
Today's ways of working may work differently tomorrow, but you can work out anything with Comcast Business. Get fast, reliable, and secure internet on the nation's largest gig speed network. Flexible tools like Wi-Fi you control, voice solutions that connect you from anywhere, and expert advice. Here, or even here. Be fast, be flexible, bounce forward with Comcast Business. Get started with a powerful internet solution for just $69.99 a month. Plus, for a limited time, ask how to get a $500 prepaid card when you upgrade. Switch today.
Greetings, mortal. Your journey requires Liberty Mutual. They customized your car insurance so you only pay for what you need. Liberty Tire!
Wow, that will save me lots of money.
You're insured!
This game is boring. Let's get tacos.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Stoneham Ford and Watertown Ford are New England's largest Ford commercial truck dealers with over 600 commercial vehicles available. We have what you need to get the job done from now until the end of the year. One-stop shopping with body and plow upfits done in-house. From F-250s to F-750s, we have trucks built and ready to go. Are you ready for winter? The 2020 F-250 with Boss Plow is starting at $40,995. Come see why Stoneham Ford and Watertown Ford are your commercial truck headquarters.
Laser X, the #1 home laser tag game on the planet. And now, get ready for the revolution. Join Team Red, Blue, or whatever color you choose. Just dial up any color, and you're ready to blast anyone. Team up with your own color, or go rogue and blast them all. Revolution has an all-new quick slide reload plus a 300-foot range. You can get the Revolution double set for $49.99, and shipping is free. Batteries not included. Extra blasters sold separately. Must be 18 years or older to order. Laser X.
Welcome back to our Decision 2020 coverage. We are getting about that time, 8 o'clock closing in, and check out all the states that close at 8 o'clock, only about 9 minutes away. I'm not going to list them all. You could see both in yellow on the map and listed there. It's a lot of electoral votes that'll be up for grabs once these polls close in just a couple minutes from now. And that's an important thing, too, because obviously the West Coast and a lot of the Midwest doesn't go for at least another hour or so. But once you start really figuring out that East Coast, you might be able to get a sense of how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, along with all-important Florida. But first, let's bring in David Paleologos. He joins us again. He's the director of the Suffolk University Political Research Center. And David, you have been working for months trying to figure out who would win this election. It is the decision time, and we're getting a lot of answers. What are you noticing already that is giving you some indication of if your polling was spot on or maybe a little off?
Well, you know, we were looking at Florida just before getting on set here, and it's amazing how close Florida is. You know, Suffolk had it a dead even tie when we polled it last, and it's living up to its reputation. Pinellas County, the bellwether, is tracking exactly where Biden is statewide. So it's amazing. I think you're right. I think the 8 o'clock hour is going to be a good one for Biden. He's probably going to be declared the victor in 9 of the 17 right out of the gate. 3 of them are going to be toss-ups, or at least Pennsylvania will be. And then Trump probably will only be declared winning 5 of the 17. So I think you're going to see the calculus change a little bit.
Yeah, and last time that we talked, you said that you thought Biden had a better chance of winning the popular vote. How are you feeling about that right now? You thinking that that polling is spot on there, but it was still, you know, kind of close.
Yeah, no, I think I stick by that. I really believe that the popular vote will be Biden's. You got to factor in New York, California, some of the bigger states. I'm quite certain that he's going to win the popular vote. Electoral college is really all that matters. The question is, what will he win the popular vote by? Will he win it by 2% like Hillary Clinton did, or will he win it closer to what the polling showed, which was between 5 and 7%?
Let's go back to 2016 for a second here, David, talking about Hillary Clinton and maybe some of the surprises in that time, specifically Michigan and Wisconsin. They were close, right? 10,000 and 22,000 respectively. Do you think that there's going to be any surprise, like one of the ones that are polling close that you might think go one way or another? Or do you think it'll stay true to form?
Michigan is really far outside the margin of error. There would have to be a major polling error in Michigan. It could be low single digits. And there have been some polls showing Wisconsin close, but I think the consensus is that Biden is polling better in 2020 than Hillary Clinton did. Question really is all about Pennsylvania, and we're probably not going to get a clear picture. In fact, Trump is probably going to be leading in Pennsylvania by a considerable margin at the end of the night because they simply aren't going to be able to process the mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania, which disproportionately favor Biden.
David, one interesting storyline here has been the state of Texas. We've seen the numbers come in of how many people voted in places like Travis County. I know it's cute to say, wow, it could go blue for the first time in 44 years. Is that a reality, or is that just kind of, Democrats' wishful thinking to say, oh my goodness, we're taking a state like Texas?
You can never really discount a state based on history. Democrats did that in the blue wall states in 2016, and it cost them dearly. Hillary Clinton underestimated, didn't show up in many of those states, 2 of the 3 states really. This time around, history says that Democrats usually for president don't get more than 45%. So it's going to be a bit of a jump for Biden to get from 45, 46 into the 50+% range. The odds do not favor that right now. But if Biden were to have a big sweep, then Texas would be in play. The fact that Biden is struggling here in Florida and it seems to be volleying back and forth like it has in the past, we haven't even seen the red panhandle counties come into play here in Florida, shows me that I'm not so sure that a sweep is a big blue sweep. At least it's not resonating in Florida.
Okay, well, good information. David Paleologos. One more question, actually. I want to just, before we go away from you, North Carolina, quick thoughts on that right now since it closed at 7:30.
Yeah, keep your eye on Caswell County in North Carolina. North Carolina, obviously with the early votes, this will be a test for future elections for the Democratic Party in terms of mail-in ballots and voting early. This will be like a test module. And if North Carolina is able to bring out not only Biden winning, but Cal Cunningham, then I think you're going to see major shifts in terms of how the parties approach.
David Paleologos from Suffolk, thanks so much for that. And we have got to get out to that touchscreen right now to see how we're doing on 270.
The all-important map, and Brian Scheckman putting those numbers in. Only a couple early states. Florida, though, could be interesting.
Well,
right?
Listen, Dave was just talking about it. I want to point out Florida. We got 81% reporting. It's basically a statistical dead heat. 2 things I want to point out. One is, if you look at blue, which is obviously Democrat, very much concentrated in urban centers, right? Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami. The word is that Biden did not do as well as some had hoped on the Democratic side in Miami-Dade County. And so we're in a dead heat right now. Basically, Trump is up 0.2%. Why does that not bode well for Joe Biden? Because it's hard to see it, but the panhandle up here, at least a half a dozen counties still haven't reported yet. This is pretty much Trump country. So nobody's calling it, but it just, in terms of reading the tea leaves right now, it looks to be leaning red a little bit. Now, broaden out to the map, of course, those 29 electoral votes, if it goes red, this is the battleground map, is very good news for Donald Trump. And again, a lot of the prognosticators, guys, they assumed that Florida would go red. But again, it was a very good thing for Trump if this happens. We'll probably get it called pretty soon. We'll be right back.
NECN, New England's connection.
America's favorite easy on, easy off energy compression socks just got better. Introducing CopperFit Energy Plus, the world's first graduated compression socks with a rich blend of ingredients found in the top moisturizing lotions and creams. These micro-encapsulated ingredients are infused into the compression fabric and are gradually released and absorbed by your movement. Motion-activated technology designed to hydrate and soften for all-day comfort. The more you move, the more CopperFit Energy Socks delivers.
I'm not thinking about that I have compression socks on. That simple fact that they feel better with them on than with them off makes me love these socks.
Our most advanced copper-infused compression fabric, made in FDA-approved manufacturing facilities, woven into our Easy On, Easy Off graduated compression sock to help reduce swelling and discomfort from prolonged sitting or standing.
I feel that soothingness in my calves and in my ankles, but they can make my feet feel good after 300 miles on the road, and they got to be good for anybody else.
Enhanced compression around the arch and ankles for extra support and relief of muscle aches and pains. And a soft, shock-absorbing footbed for all-day comfort.
All that arch pain that I typically have is just relieved.
They are super comfortable.
They do the job. They're easy and they're effective. That's the whole point of wearing them.
Commercials always promise, promise, promise. This was something easy to try. Just put on a sock, see if it works. I have to say that I'm a fan.
The first ever Easy On, Easy Off compression socks with hydrating ingredients, worn by thousands of essential workers across the U.S. Order your Energy Plus compression socks online now at GetEnergyPlus.com for only $19.99 or call